Miles Carter stepped off the stagecoach, his lanky frame barely casting a shadow on the dirt road of the bustling mining town. The sun blazed overhead, illuminating the scornful glances and whispered remarks from the townsfolk gathered nearby. To them, he was nothing more than a rail-thin stranger with clothes that hung loosely from his slight build, a walking paper-thin reminder of everything they valued: strength, size, and grit. As he took his first tentative steps onto solid ground, Miles felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on him. He had journeyed far seeking a fresh start, yet the looks he received made it clear he was not welcome. A group of burly miners grinned mockingly, whispering among themselves about how someone so small could ever survive in their rough world. Miles tried to ignore them, pushing aside the sting of their words as he walked toward the heart of town. His thin frame moved through the crowd like a wisp of smoke, unnoticed by most but painfully aware of every sneer and snicker. Despite his nerves, he held his head high, determined not to let anyone's opinion crush his spirit. He was more than just his appearance. He had dreams of finding work and making a life for himself if only someone would give him a chance. Just then, a loud crash echoed from up the hill where the local mine loomed large. Panic spread among the townspeople as they realized something had gone horribly wrong. Without thinking, Miles felt his heart race. He wasn't about to stand by while others were in danger. The whispers turned into shouts as people ran towards the site of the disaster. Miles's instincts kicked in. He sprinted toward the mine without hesitation, ignoring the disbelief etched on the faces behind him. All those judgments faded away as he focused on helping those in need. In that moment of chaos, Miles wasn't just a skinny man. He was a potential hero ready to prove that worth comes in many forms, and sometimes, it's hidden beneath layers that others refuse to see. As Miles stepped further into the town, he could feel the weight of the townsfolk's scrutinizing gazes. Their whispers floated through the crisp air like sharp darts, each word aimed at his frame. "Look at that skinny fellow. What can he do?" One miner scoffed, crossing his arms over his broad chest. Another chimed in, chuckling, "He's more likely to blow away than survive here." Each laugh twisted in Miles's stomach as he walked past them. Their mockery felt like a storm brewing around him, and he longed to be anywhere else. The contrast between his wiry appearance and their rugged builds was striking. Most of the men looked as if they could crush boulders with their bare hands, while Miles felt as fragile as a dried leaf tossed in the wind. Amidst the laughter, one woman glanced at him with a look of pity before turning her attention back to her tasks. It stung. Although he had traveled a long way to seek opportunity, it seemed that acceptance would be even more elusive than he had imagined. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves and shake off the stares. As he wandered through the streets, the building's simple wooden structures worn by time seemed to echo his feelings of inadequacy. He wanted desperately to belong, to prove to the townsfolk that he was capable of more than they believed. If only someone would give him a chance. But negativity flowed like water in this rough mining town, making it hard for positive thoughts to break through. "I hope he's not here to steal our jobs," grumbled one older man, narrowing his eyes as he watched Miles from across the street. Rather than losing hope, Miles clutched onto his dreams tightly. As he strolled towards the town's center, he continued to carry himself with determination despite feeling like an outsider. Little did anyone know that a spark of bravery lay hidden within him, ready to emerge when least expected. Their dismissive remarks couldn't dim his resolve. Perhaps soon they would see a side of him they never anticipated. Just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the town, a deep rumble shook the ground. The sound echoed like thunder, sending a wave of panic through the streets. People stopped in their tracks, eyes wide with fear as they turned toward the distant mountain that housed the mine. With an earth-shattering roar, a plume of dust and debris erupted into the sky. The mine had exploded, and chaos quickly followed. The townspeople rushed toward the site, shouting for their friends and loved ones who might be trapped inside. Miles stood frozen for a moment, his breath caught in his throat as he watched debris cascade down like rain. A sense of urgency gripped him as he saw miners sprinting towards the entrance, yelling orders and calling for help. The laughter and mockery he had faced just moments ago faded from his mind, replaced by a rising tide of determination. Without thinking about his own safety or how others perceived him, Miles sprang into action. He darted through the crowd and headed straight for the mine entrance. His heart pounded loudly in his chest as he navigated through fallen rocks and frightened workers. The thick dust stung his eyes, but he pushed forward, fueled by adrenaline and an overwhelming desire to help. As he reached the entrance, he spotted several miners trying to free their colleagues trapped beneath heavy beams and rubble. Miles didn't hesitate, he rushed to assist them. "We need to get these beams off." "Grab that end," he shouted, surprising even himself with how assertive he sounded. Together, they worked feverishly against time, lifting heavy debris while shouting encouragements to each other. Miles felt his muscles strain under the effort, but every grunt of pain was overshadowed by thoughts of those who needed saving. Just then, a faint cry came from beneath a pile of rocks, a voice filled with fear but still hopeful. With renewed strength, Miles joined forces with the others to clear more rubble away until finally they uncovered a miner's arm reaching out. Cheers erupted around them as they pulled him free and ushered him to safety. In that moment of bravery amidst chaos, Miles realized that perhaps he truly belonged here after all. Strength wasn't just about size but about courage when it mattered most. As the dust settled from the explosion, a frantic energy filled the air. Miles stood at the entrance of the mine, his heart racing as he absorbed the chaos around him. Miners were shouting, their voices laced with urgency and fear. The cries for help echoed against the rocky walls, igniting a fierce determination inside him. This was his moment to act. Ignoring his own trepidation, Miles charged into the heart of the disaster zone. The heat from smoldering debris pressed against him as he navigated through fallen timbers and twisted metal. He could feel the weight of those he sought to save driving him forward. Their lives depended on swift action. Each step was an act of defiance against both fate and fear. Reaching a group of miners struggling to lift a heavy beam off a trapped colleague, Miles shouted, "I'm here. Let's do this together." His voice rang out with an authority he didn't know he had. The other miners turned to him in surprise but quickly nodded in agreement, emphasizing how in moments of crisis, even unexpected leaders could emerge. With all his strength, Miles wedged himself beside the others, grasping onto the beam that seemed far too heavy for him. On three. 1, 2, 3. They heaved together with every ounce of energy they could muster. The effort felt like it stretched time itself as sweat streamed down their faces and muscles strained against gravity. As they lifted the beam slightly, a faint moan emerged from beneath the rubble. They paused for a split second before working together again, inching it up until finally they freed a miner's leg. Relief washed over them as they pulled him out from under the wreckage, cheers erupting amidst the smoke and dust. But Miles wasn't done yet. Hearing another cry nearby fueled his courage even more. He darted deeper into the chaos and stumbled upon two others trapped under boulders. Regaining his focus and resolve, he knew that if he could help save even one more life today, it would make all the difference. With renewed vigor coursing through him, Miles rallied nearby miners once more and guided them through rescuing their colleagues, showcasing not just his bravery but also a newfound belief in himself that would change everything in that mining town forever. In that moment of heroism, he transformed into an unexpected savior. Perhaps this was truly where he belonged after all. As the dust of the mine explosion began to settle, a hush fell over the scene. Amongst the chaos, Lydia Beaumont stood at the edge of the crowd, her heart pounding in her chest. As the town's wealthiest widow, she was used to attending social events and maintaining her elegant image, but today felt different. Today, she witnessed something that would change her perspective entirely. Her dark hair framed her face, catching the warm light as she watched Miles Carter take charge of the rescue effort. The sight of him, thin yet determined, pushing through the debris with unwavering resolve captivated her. Unlike the other miners who towered over him, he didn't let his size define him. Instead, he showcased courage and strength that transcended appearances, qualities she found deeply impressive. Lydia felt a strange flutter in her chest as she noticed how Miles motivated others around him, rallying them to work together in a way that revealed his natural leadership. He shouted instructions with an authority she hadn't expected from someone who'd been so quickly dismissed by everyone else in town. Her initial thought was to help those trapped, but watching Miles transformed her concern into something more profound: admiration. The way he navigated the disaster zone, his wiry frame moving through fallen timbers while other men hesitated, sparked a flicker of interest within her. She couldn't help but think about how often people overlooked those who seemed weak or unassuming, and how often true strength lay hidden beneath the surface. It was at that moment she realized there was more to this man than met the eye. As the last survivor was pulled from the rubble and cheers erupted around them, Lydia stepped forward through the crowd to get a closer look at Miles. While others celebrated their triumph together, she saw the sweat glistening on his brow and the determination etched on his face. Suddenly, he was no longer just a skinny suitor, he was a hero who had proven his worth amid chaos. In that instant, something shifted within Lydia. She felt compelled to know more about this man who had captured not only her attention but her respect as well. Perhaps she would find an opportunity to speak with him soon. This unexpected hero had sparked curiosity in her heart like no one else ever had. As days passed after the mine explosion, Lydia couldn't shake the image of Miles Carter from her mind. The way he had stepped up when chaos reigned like a true leader formed an impression far beyond any first glance could offer. She found herself pondering his character and what it must have taken for him to act so courageously against overwhelming odds. Determined to learn more, Lydia sought out opportunities to observe him in the days that followed. She often visited the site where the miners were rebuilding, watching Miles engage with the men who once mocked him. His kindness and patience transformed those around him. They began to respect him not just for his bravery that day, but also for his intelligence and problem-solving skills as he helped others learn safe practices for mining. One sunny afternoon, while sipping tea on her porch, Lydia spotted Miles walking by, deep in conversation with a group of workers. Intrigued, she stepped outside, surprising them with her presence. "Miles, could you join me for a moment?" she called out. Hesitant at first, Miles approached her slowly, with that warm smile he wore during the rescue effort still lingering on his face. He nodded. As they settled into an easy conversation, something remarkable happened. Lydia realized there was an undeniable spark of connection between them. As they talked, Miles shared stories about his life before arriving at the town. His dreams of finding meaningful work and making a difference wherever he could. His eyes lit up as he spoke about nature and how it inspired him to find solutions to challenges around him. Lydia felt her admiration deepen with every word. She was discovering a creative mind hidden beneath the exterior others scorned. Their discussions became more regular as time went on. Lydia sensed that beneath Miles's modest demeanor lay wisdom and insight that many in town had overlooked. Their moments together grew into laughter and banter, allowing Lydia to view him as more than a hero. She saw potential for both friendship and something deeper. In those exchanges, Lydia felt her perception shifting entirely. No longer just a rail-thin suitor in her eyes, but rather a man of substance with compassion and intellect, someone she wanted to support and encourage. Each conversation chipped away at preconceived notions about social status and appearances. Perhaps true worth was found far beneath surface-level judgments after all. As Miles continued to navigate his new life in the mining town, he quickly learned that proving himself worthy of Lydia's affection was no easy task. While the admiration from Lydia blossomed with each passing day, skepticism from other townsfolk lingered like a dark cloud overhead. The same burly miners who once mocked him were now wary, unsure if the thin man who had emerged as a hero could truly stand alongside them. Despite his earlier display of courage, whispers permeated the air. "What does she see in him?" one miner scoffed while nursing a beer at the local saloon. "He's too weak for her ways." Such comments stung Miles deeply. He felt a growing pressure to prove not only his resilience but also his worthiness in winning Lydia's heart. Miles threw himself into work on rebuilding efforts in the mine, hoping that hard labor would silence those who doubted him. He pushed himself harder than any of the others, sweating under the weight of heavy rocks and trying to earn their respect through sheer dedication. Yet, each grunt of effort seemed to echo back his perceived inadequacies. After all, he remained slender and slight compared to the muscle-bound miners around him. One afternoon, as they gathered for tools before starting on a new section of the mine, one particularly large foreman taunted him publicly. "You're good for nothing but being a sidekick," he joked arrogantly, causing laughter to ripple through the crew. At first, Miles felt deflated by their laughter. But looking out for Lydia, whose thoughtful gaze always seemed to catch his eye, he steeled himself against their jeers. He knew that action spoke louder than words. That evening during supper at the miners' hall, he stood up confidently and shared safety tips he'd researched about preventing further accidents. Some scoffed, but others listened intently. Slowly but surely, he began gaining traction among those who initially doubted him. With each small victory in sharing knowledge and lending a hand when others needed aid, trust began to form within the community. Through grit and determination filled with purpose, Miles recognized he could overcome not just physical challenges but also social obstacles to prove he was more than just a skinny suitor. He was someone who genuinely cared about others and was committed to making a difference, qualities that might one day win Lydia's heart for good. As time passed, the bond between Miles and Lydia deepened through a series of shared experiences that solidified their trust and mutual respect. Lydia often found herself visiting the rebuilding site, not only to check on the progress but also to spend time with Miles. She marveled at how he seamlessly connected with the miners, sharing laughter and stories amid the hard work, which showcased a different side of him that she had begun to admire. One afternoon, while they were both taking a break from the demanding labor, Miles mentioned his love for nature and hiking. "There's a beautiful trail just beyond the ridge," he said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "I'd love to show it to you. It's peaceful up there." Lydia's heart raced at the thought of spending time alone with him in such a serene setting. Finally, after some gentle persuasion, she agreed to go on an afternoon hike with Miles. As they walked side by side on the rugged path, surrounded by towering pines and vibrant wildflowers, their conversation flowed easily, a mix of laughter and shared dreams. Miles spoke passionately about his aspirations of creating a safe working environment for miners and even starting a community program for educating newcomers about mining safety. Lydia listened intently, appreciating his vision and commitment to making a positive impact in the town. In those moments, she saw not just a man striving for acceptance but a thoughtful individual dedicated to improving lives. As they reached a scenic overlook, Lydia was taken aback by the breathtaking view that stretched before them. "It's magnificent," she exclaimed, taking in the sprawling valley below. Miles smiled at her joy, feeling pride swell in his chest. "It's my favorite spot," he replied softly. "I come here when I need to think." In that tranquil space, away from the doubts and judgments of the town, they shared stories from their pasts, Lydia recounting her life as a widow and how she had learned resilience through hardship, while Miles opened up about his journey to find purpose after facing rejection. By the time they returned from their hike, it was clear that their connection had evolved into something meaningful. The barriers built by societal expectations began to crumble between them as they planted seeds of friendship that blossomed into deeper feelings. With each interaction, Lydia saw more clearly that Miles was not defined by his appearance but by his character, the very qualities that made her heart flutter each time she looked at him. Just as their relationship began to flourish, a new challenge emerged that put Miles and Lydia's bond to the test. One evening, as they attended a community gathering in the town square, the atmosphere was filled with laughter and chatter, but beneath the surface lurked an undercurrent of skepticism toward Miles. While they mingled among friends and neighbors, a group of burly miners approached them, their expressions hardened by years of rough living. "So, Lydia," one of them said with a mocking smile, "are you really going to waste your time with this scrawny fellow? What can he possibly offer you?" The laughter that followed echoed through the crowd, piercing through the lightheartedness of the evening. Miles felt his heart sink at their words. He had anticipated such reactions but had hoped that his hard work would have earned him some respect. Lydia sensed his discomfort and stepped forward to defend him. "Miles is not just a scrawny fellow. He is intelligent, kind-hearted, and cares deeply for this community," she asserted passionately. Yet her words seemed to fall flat against the wall of disbelief from those who only saw his thin frame. "You're just blinded by affection," another miner sneered, crossing his arms defiantly. "When it comes down to it, strength matters in this town." Miles stood silently beside Lydia as the criticism swirled around them. It stung, but he also felt a surge of determination. This was not just about him anymore, it was about proving to Lydia and himself that he was more than what others thought. With a deep breath, he decided to speak up for himself. "I may not be built like some of you," he began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his heart. "But I've shown courage when it counted most. I've worked hard to support our community and will continue to do so." His words hung in the air like an unbreakable thread reaching out for understanding. For a moment, silence filled the space as some miners exchanged glances, others remained unmoved. But then one man nodded slowly as if reconsidering. Lydia looked at Miles with admiration shining in her eyes. Together they faced this adversity, not just as individuals but as a united front against ignorance and prejudice. In that moment, both understood that navigating societal expectations would take resilience and sincerity, but they were ready to face those challenges together. As they walked away from the crowd that night, Miles felt renewed purpose within him. He would not only strive for acceptance but also for understanding, a journey he now realized he didn't have to undertake alone. The tension in the mining town reached a boiling point one fateful evening when news spread that a group of miners had become trapped deep within the mine due to a sudden collapse. Miles felt an immediate surge of adrenaline as he realized this was his moment to act, but with it came a heavy sense of dread. He knew Lydia would be worried for his safety, and he found himself torn between rushing to help and protecting her. As the townsfolk gathered at the mine entrance, fear and anxiety hung thick in the air. Lydia stood among them, her face pale with worry. "Miles," she called out as he approached, eyes wide with concern. Please be careful. You don't have to go in. I can't just stand here, Miles replied firmly, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He turned to the crowd where burly miners stood whispering among themselves. I can help. I know how to navigate through the tunnels. But their skepticism hadn't vanished. One miner scoffed loudly, You'll just get yourself killed. Let real men handle this. The taunts echoed in Miles's mind, igniting an inner battle. Looking into Lydia's worried eyes, he saw not just fear but faith in him, a belief that he could make a difference despite what others thought. It was then that Miles realized he wasn't just fighting for respect, he was also fighting for her trust and the chance to prove that true strength comes from within. With determination fueling him, Miles stepped forward boldly. I may not look strong, he began, addressing both Lydia and the crowd, but I've faced danger before and emerged stronger. He took a deep breath and continued, I will not let fear dictate my actions today. People are trapped inside and they need every hand they can get. As murmurs spread through the crowd, some miners began to nod in approval while others remained skeptical. But Lydia stepped closer to him, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. I believe in you, Miles. Reinvigorated by her support, Miles made his choice. He would go into the mine. Not just for himself but for those who needed help and for Lydia who believed in him when no one else did. With courage forged from love and friendship at his back, Miles entered the darkness of the mine determined to save lives after all, and perhaps earn his place among those who once underestimated him along the way. This was no longer just about proving himself. This was about standing up for what was right and protecting those he cared about most. After the harrowing rescue, the atmosphere in the mining town began to shift dramatically. Miles emerged from the mine not only as a hero but as a symbol of resilience and courage. The townsfolk who once doubted him now gathered around him with newfound respect and admiration. Lydia stood beside him, her heart swelling with pride as she embraced the man who had proven himself against all odds. In the weeks that followed, Miles continued to demonstrate his commitment to both the community and Lydia. He organized safety training sessions for miners, incorporating lessons learned from his own experiences. As he gained the trust of those who once scorned him, the barrier between him and the townsfolk began to dissolve. They recognized that true strength lay not in size but in character, compassion, and determination. One sunny afternoon, as the town prepared for a festival celebrating their recovery from tragedy, Miles took Lydia aside to a quiet spot overlooking the valley. The vibrant colors of flowers bloomed around them, mirroring the blossoming of their relationship. With butterflies fluttering in his stomach, he took her hands in his and spoke earnestly. Lydia, he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You saw my worth long before I could see it. He paused, searching her eyes for encouragement before continuing. I want to spend my life proving that your faith was not misplaced. With a hopeful smile, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Kneeling on one knee, he opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring glimmering in the sunlight. Will you marry me? Tears of joy welled up in Lydia's eyes as she gasped in surprise. The crowd that had gathered nearby erupted into cheers at this heartfelt moment. Yes. 1,000 times yes, she exclaimed, pulling him into an embrace that spoke volumes about their journey together. The engagement announcement spread like wildfire through the town, transforming skepticism into celebration. Many who once doubted Miles now stood proudly by his side, recognizing his bravery not only during the mine collapse but also throughout their shared struggles against prejudice. As they celebrated their love under a canopy of stars that night, Miles and Lydia knew they had conquered not just societal expectations but also their own fears. Together they had forged a bond strong enough to withstand anything life might throw their way, proving that love triumphs over adversity every time. As the celebrations of Miles and Lydia's engagement filled the mining town, a profound sense of reflection settled over the community. The journey that had brought them to this moment was not just one of love but also a testament to the strength of character and the importance of genuine actions over superficial appearances. Miles stood hand in hand with Lydia, looking out at the faces in the crowd, faces that had once mocked him, questioned his worth, and doubted his abilities. Yet here they were now, united in joy and celebration, having witnessed transformative growth not just in Miles but within themselves as well. He felt deeply grateful for the lessons learned along the way. As he walked through the gathering, Miles took a moment to reflect on the challenges he had faced. It wasn't merely his thin frame that had drawn scrutiny, it was the town's quickness to judge based on appearances rather than the heart or spirit beneath. Each taunt he had endured and every doubt cast upon him had strengthened his resolve. He realized that true worth was not defined by size or strength but by one's actions, intentions, and how they treated others. Lydia, standing beside him, embodied this lesson as well. Her belief in him from the very beginning had been rooted in recognizing his potential beyond what was visible. She had seen the kindness behind his eyes and the passion in his heart, a reminder that love could flourish even in the face of adversity. Together, they represented a new narrative for their town, one that urged people to look deeper and see beyond the surface. As they exchanged heartfelt vows surrounded by friends and family, it became evident that their union was not just about their love for each other but also about challenging the societal norms that had once sought to divide them. In that moment of unity and acceptance, Miles understood that their love story was a beacon of hope for others who felt underestimated. They had proven that with courage, compassion, and unwavering support from one another, it was possible to overcome prejudice and emerge victorious. As laughter and cheers filled the air, Miles smiled at Lydia, knowing their journey had only just begun. Together, they would continue to inspire those around them to embrace true worth defined by character and action, an enduring legacy that would resonate in their community long after this joyful day.